WLRN's Luis Hernandez spoke with Florida U.S. Senator Marco Rubio about relief efforts here and the state's response to Dorian.
I want to ask you about the Bahamas. It's going to take some time for them to recover, but what role do you see the federal government playing in helping in their relief?
Well, it's not charity, and people start thinking about it that way, although there's a role for that. But we have a mutual agreement with the Bahamian authorities on mutual assistance when it comes. They've helped us in the past. We've had boaters and people lost, and they've responded to it in the past after storms. So they've invoked that. The Prime Minister, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs requested humanitarian assistance. And for NEMA, which is their emergency response network, similar to FEMA, the Prime Minister Minnis, has identified the most immediate needs being food and water, and then followed up with requests for tents and portable toilets as soon as viable. He said he's going to make all government land that's not underwater available for the staging. So USAID has already stood up a disaster assistance response team. They've already provided $200,000 in cash, there'll be more, but quickly, to the Bahamian Red Cross for just the most immediate needs in the short term, the next 48 hours. We've got response management teams from USAID ready to support the assistance response teams.
Have you had any kind of communication with the Bahamas Prime Minister?
Not with the Prime Minister in the last few days, but with the ambassador, who's arrived now in Miami, and he's here to both coordinate the non-governmental aid as well as the government response to the Consul General's office as well. So we spoke to him probably shortly after he landed here in Miami. And one of the things that I want to make certain is there's a lot of willingness to help. There are a lot of people in the community that want to come forward and help. We have to make sure, however, that aid goes through the proper channels, and here's why. We can't have a bunch of pleasure crafts taking off to the Bahamas or airplanes trying to land over there, because while we appreciate people wanting to help, it has to be organized to the Bahamian authorities so that they know where to go, they know what they need. If we deliver a bunch of stuff they don't need, you're creating a problem for them. If we're taking it to the wrong place, you're creating a problem for them. We've got to take it to the right place where they can then distribute it.
Senator, how is the federal government prepared to assist any parts of Florida that may get damaged from Dorian?
Well, obviously, if there's any sort of serious situation where people are out of their homes and what have you, there's all the plethora of federal programs and federal assistance through the state. Largely, the federal government serves as a ancillary or support backup to the state. The primary responder after every storm are the states, and then they tell the federal government whether they're missing something and whether they need something that they don't have, and that's where FEMA steps in and fills in those gaps. And then more long-term, obviously, there's the direct assistance programs through FEMA, through the Small Business Administration, and so forth.
There's been a lot of discussion following Hurricane Irma about the state and how it prepares for mass evacuations, but what's been your take on how Governor DeSantis and this administration has handled everything so far? Really good. They've done a real good job, and I think part of the credit, and I'm not taking any from him, but goes to the National Hurricane Center. So one of the things that's happened over the last couple of years that people have not necessarily picked up on is, first, is the cone of uncertainty has gotten narrower than it used to be. So if you take this storm right now, and it was 10 years ago, that cone would probably be twice the size, which would force us to make all kinds of evacuations to be safe. But the other is the storm surge projection, and that's something that's just come online in the last few years and has gotten better. And what that does is you are actually able to take the information about the particular storm, put it up against the map, and from it to predict which are the areas that are going to see storm surge, and those are the areas you evacuate, not the whole county, but blocks, at the block level, actually. And that's what they did this time around, and what it allowed them to do is have targeted evacuations. Now you're not clogging up the roads, now you're not taxing services, now you're not having to open up shelters that you don't need to open. And it took a lot of faith to do that, by the way, because this is a massive storm sitting right off our coast. They keep telling us it's going to turn, and you're banking on it turning, because if it doesn't, well, we got a big problem on our hands.